everyone, and welcome to Tuesday Traces. I am super excited to be taking Tuesday Traces on the road again. Yesterday I drove from Charleston through Sumter up to Macon, Georgia. I am at the Idle Hour Golf Course. I'm working with my very, very good friend Brandon Stooksbury. We just installed a whole bunch of new hardware today. 2 brand new cameras, a whole bunch of new cables. We actually put new lighting in. I've got a pressure mat behind me, which you'll see in a minute. And instead of doing a tour like I did last week, we're actually going to screen share and you're going to see some live pressure data in the studio with a couple rock stars I have over here with me later. So if you don't know already, I'm Mandy Von C. I'm the Southeast Regional Sales Manager for V1 Sports. I am the V1 Sports team cheerleader. Our team is growing. Super excited to be adding to the team. We have the amazing, wonderful Chris McGinley, who has rejoined the V1 team. Super excited. Thanks, Chris, for coming back. And I'm really excited tonight because I have one of my teammates actually here with me. So you guys have heard me talk about the girls. I talk about my girls. They help us do this. We've done 30 traces. There's a lot of work that goes into it. And the girls do a lot of work to help me prepare. I would like to introduce Haley. She is awesome. She is our director of social media. She's a really great golfer. She's an amazing teammate. And anything you see on social media, any of it is all Haley. So say hi to her on the chat, send her a note on social, follow us. And you're actually going to see her golf swing later. She's a really good golfer. And if it's not too cold, we're going to open that door and we're going to have Brandon show her how to do some chip shots and what she should be doing with her weight. So that brings us to our star of the evening. You guys, my buddy Brandon Stooksbury is younger than me, but has way bigger resume than most of the people that we've talked to. Brandon is a Georgia Teacher of the Year twice. He is a Golf Tips magazine best teacher many, many years. He is a best young teacher, Golf Digest, many years. And he also is the #1 bestseller for short game books. And I would like to introduce everyone to my friend, Brandon Stooksbury.
Hey, man.
I'm so happy you're here.
Thanks.
We're so happy to learn from you tonight.
Hey, everybody.
You guys, I have a lot of friends in golf, but I get really cool things. And one of the things that I got from my friend is Brandon's 2 books. He wrote 2 books. We're going to give them away later, a set of these. The really cool special thing is that this book just came off the presses, and I happened to have gotten the very first copy. This is the very first copy of the putting book. So, really cool book. So, Brandon, you told Haley and I a cool story about why you wrote these books, and I think it means a lot. And, you know, we always want to practice driver.
Right.
And nobody wants to practice short game.
Nobody.
So, why did you write 2 really good books on short game?
Yeah, so I found myself in a position to where I was trying to figure out how to get better at teaching short game, and I couldn't find a whole lot out there in the world. I tried to do some research. I tried to find things to read, and there's some stuff in there. A lot of
clinics.
Yeah, a lot. I found myself teaching a lot of golf schools, and I would have more luck getting people better, faster teaching short game than I would anywhere else. And if you think about it, it makes sense. Over 60% of the golf shots you get in any round of golf are less than a full swing, whether you shoot 65 or 105. And so it makes sense that getting better at those areas would get you better at shooting lower scores, but nobody works on it, right? Especially not in the last 20 years. Nobody wants to hit it as far as they can.
Right.
And so I tried to get better at it. I tried to find information. I couldn't find information. And a lot of what was being taught was not very good, in my opinion, and wasn't helping people very much. And so I saw a need, I saw a void, and I tried to fill it. And it turned out to be a bestseller. So the putter book was a natural follow-up. I wasn't sure I was going to write 2 books. After the first one did as well as it did, I thought, why not? And so it took me a little longer to get out than I wanted. The wedge book's been out for 5 years. The putting book's just now coming out. That probably wasn't smart on my part, but here it is.
So you guys, you can get them both on Amazon. The wedge book is still the #1 best-selling golf short game book. So go get it. One of you will win a copy of both tonight. I'll have Brandon sign them, although his note to you won't be as sweet as mine because I got the first copy. So there you go. Okay, so you have been here for a while. You started golf because you grew up on a golf course and you played forever. You've got a lot of people in the golf industry that look up to you very, very, very much. I've had multiple people tell me that you are their mentor.
I appreciate
which
that.
is cool.
Right.
And I've watched you teach in here some today. And naturally, you talked about weight in the chipping shot without even really talking about pressure.
Right.
You also talked a lot about setup. And it was really cool to see it, guys, because I'm setting up a system and I'm looking at Face on and Down the Line videos and watching Brandon teach a lesson. And it was really cool because I got to really see how he taught his student short game chip shots based on body and weight.
Right.
So I would really love for you to sort of go through that
Sure.
with the chip shot. And we're going to screen share, guys, and we're only going to turn on the face on camera. Why do you only use face on camera for chipping, or mostly?
Mostly, yeah, because anything that has to do with the way the body moves left or right or sort of rotationally relative to the target is face on. Typically, the only thing you're looking for in a down the line view is how the golf club moves.
Right.
It sort of gets a little bigger than that in a full swing when the hands get up above the shoulder, but in the short game, everything's so small. You deal with sort of path and plane and face issues and down the line, but any body motion's always face on.
Okay. And of your lessons, how much are you spending on short game with your students? 80%?
Yeah, it changed a lot when the book came out. I always taught a lot of short game, but when you write a book and it turns out to be a bestseller, people tend to seek you out for short game. And so I would say it's over 70% of what I do day in and day out is short game. I still teach a lot of juniors and develop a lot of players. They're going to college or they're in college and they're playing on the professional tours. But people that walk up or people that seek me out for golf instruction, it's over 70% easy short game.
Cool. And just for the audience, because I know a lot of you watched last week, and Paul Woodbury is all juniors. You're teaching everybody here. This is Idle Hour is very much all ages. So when you're teaching, we're not just talking about juniors, we're talking about everybody. So what you'll hear from Brandon today is universal, let's say. I think a lot of the stuff we talked about last week was very much how to communicate with juniors. Would you agree, Haley?
Yeah.
And Paul's got to make that very easy for them to understand. But you're definitely working with everybody.
Yeah, and not only am I working with everybody, but these principles across the board for everybody.
Cool.
Young, old, new, new in the game, seasoned in the game.
Those of us that don't keep our scores yet.
It doesn't matter,
Yeah,
right?
got it.
Doesn't matter.
Got it. All right, so let's do a screen share. Let's have you talk to us about setup for the chip shot.
All right. So what I think makes the most sense, you might be able to see. Sorry.
Screen share?
What I think makes the most sense when we talk about sort of wedges is to talk about how setup affects how all that moves. And so if you see the trace on the screen, you'll see the heat map at my feet. If you stand 50-50, I want to talk about a couple of ways to shift weight, right? And relative to short game, a couple of pitfalls that people get into. And so in a full swing setup, right, we very much have wide feet, right? We have the right hand lower on the golf club. A lot of us have a strong-ish grip. And that's okay. We're not here to talk about why that might or might not be okay. But when we have both of those things, a strong-ish grip and a wider stance, we tend to get set up to where the spine is angled away, okay? And so what you'll see is my weight distribution really isn't much different than 50-50, right? If anything, it might be hanging a little bit back on the right, but I wouldn't want that, right?
Right.
Most people talk about being 60-40 left, and I'm okay with that, but in a full swing, you get 60-40 left by leaning knees left, right? And so if everybody can see that, you sort of sit into the left leg. And that's fine, right? That creates angle here. And in the full swing, that's okay, because we have a ton of weight shift in the golf swing and a ton of speed. And the sole of the golf club is designed to cut through the dirt. Not so in short game at all, right? The sole of the golf club is designed very differently. It's designed to interact with the ground very differently. So we have to swing it differently, right? But that's a big pitfall because a lot of people try to apply that full swing setup to short game, right? What it does is this spine angle that it increases or that it creates on the way down, they start trying to shift weight and it gets more lean behind. And now they have to make a couple of real bad compensations to try to save it. They end up delivering a lot of forward shaft lean. They end up catching the leading edge a lot in the ground, not using the bounce at all. They might even hit it a little fat, okay? So the difference in how you set up for short game and full swing has to do with this spine angle. You're much more narrow, right? And instead of sitting into the hip, right, which would definitely put my weight left, as you'll see on the trace,
yep, right there.
I've got 80% of my weight left. The spine moves, so you see my weight went left again, right? But my pressure went with it. Yep. So the little gray dot moving there. And so when I go this way, right, my pressure doesn't tend to move much out of the middle, even though my weight's heavy in my left foot. When I go this way, my weight and my pressure move left. Yep. And that's what we're looking for in short game. Okay. The only way to do that is to move the spine, right? Because if the spine stays back, it doesn't matter how much weight you get left, the pressure is going to stay in the middle. Yep. Right? Okay. Okay, so if you get the spine left, then the pressure is going to drift with it. Does that make sense?
It does. Now, you had a student earlier, and he had some trouble with that. What was he doing?
Yeah, and so the mistake that most people make starts with the grip and then gets into the left arm and shoulder. And so they try to apply that stronger grip. Works fine with a 9-iron or even a driver, right? But as the hand rotates this way, right, the other way for righties or for lefties, then this elbow tends to get rotated, and then that gets the shoulder high. And so you see this typical setup with a lot of tilt in the shoulders, right? Mm-hmm. So the left shoulder is very high, the right shoulder is very low, okay? Because this arm is what I call locked out. Yep. Okay? That shoves the spine that way. It doesn't matter how hard you want to get this way, your arm doesn't want to work that way. Right. Right? It's because it's jammed up there, okay? And so it usually problems start there. So what I had, and that was his problem. So what we talked about was that in finesse wedges, usually inside 40 yards-ish, distance wedges are a different animal. But finesse wedges close to a green, typically you'll start with a much weaker grip. Not even neutral, possibly even weak. And the reason is because it rotates the elbow to where the white of the elbow goes up and then lowers the left shoulder so that you can set up in a way that has the left arm soft with bend. And now my shoulders are much more level here than they were before when he had that strong grip and rotated left arm. That make sense?
It does. And you were able to see that super quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, you're a really great short game guy. But for people that are not able to look at the body like you did, because you noticed that immediately. Yep. If someone got on a mat and saw a crazy setup for chipping, what would it look like? Yeah. What do you think?
You're going to see heavy left, right? But you'll see the little gray pressure ball more in the middle. Okay. Right.
So we really want all that.
That's right. In 2D video, you'll see a lot of spine tilt. On your pressure trace, you'll see heavy weight left, but pressure back or in the middle.
And you never want to go back in the chip, ever. You're always moving towards the target.
Always moving toward the target.
Always.
Yeah, there's a couple of ways to do it. The best in the world do one of two things. They either set it there and leave it there, or they sort of set it there and move it further there.
And that's what you did.
But they're never moving backwards.
Can we show that video again?
Of course, okay. Yeah.
We took some videos earlier, guys. I hope I can find the one that I'm talking about. Let me get all my windows out of the way here. It's hard to see this when
should be that last one on the left.
This one?
Yep. Pretty sure it's that one. Yep.
I wanted to show the one of you, but this one was his good shot, right?
Yeah. This was the last one we did. So that first video, that 335, is likely one of the first that he did. So we're already working on his grip. You can see him fiddling with it there, trying to get his left shoulder low. And that's pretty good right there. His spine is tilted a little bit more than I'd like to see.
This way?
Yep, and you see the pressure there. His weight is a little heavier left, but the pressure's still in the middle.
Yeah, it is.
That's a telltale sign, right?
Okay, so that's a really great thing for the instructors to remember. Guys, what Brandon is saying is that this dot in the middle is not the best thing for chip shots. He really wants it to be further over here so that the center of pressure is over towards the target. So let's see what Trey does here. This is not the best shot, I don't think, if I remember correctly.
So you start to see the left knee drift. You see the spine tilt hanging back.
Yep.
And by the time we get into this position on a pressure mat, everything's going to be forward. And you're right, that was a better one than what we saw when we started.
But this is the really good.
Yeah, this is a really good one. And so right there, if you just let it freeze, take it right back to setup for me.
Okay.
So look at the little white ball now. Look at your pressure ball now.
Look at that.
So you've got 75% of your weight left, which frankly is probably a little overkill, right? But we were trying to exaggerate.
Yeah, we were
but
trying
now
to
you have your pressure left with it.
Okay.
That's what you're looking for right there.
And when do we ever want to see more pressure in the chip shot on this side?
Never.
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 Never. Okay.
And so you're going to see that pressure stay there, right? See, it's not going to move backwards at all. It's going to stay right there or move more forward. And that's exactly what you're looking for in a quality short game. Finesse wedge shot. Distance is different, right? That's a different animal. The distance wedge will start, you'll start to see the normal trace that you would see out of the full swing show up. It'll be a smaller version, but it'll have the same shape when you're hitting a distance wedge.
So this is super fascinating, and you guys send questions, and I'm sure there's tons. I'm not watching them now. I just have lots of questions. Do we really care about the actual trace, that line that I'm seeing, as much as the center of pressure dot?
Not really.
Doesn't sound like it.
Not in finesse wedges. No, we don't, because it's not going to move, right? I mean, if you do this thing correctly, you're going to be left, right? Your weight's going to be left, and your pressure is going to be left,
Right.
and it's going to sort of stay there, and you're going to rotate around that pressure. So I really don't want to see it move. I only want to see it move because I want to see it going more toward the target.
Towards the target.
Right.
Okay.
I never, ever, ever want to see it going backwards.
Ever. In a chip shot.
In a finesse wedge shot.
Okay.
Ever.
All right.
Ever.
Do we have questions? I feel like we should pause for questions. Kelly, do we have questions yet on that? Anybody want more detail on that? We just covered like a bunch of really important stuff.
So while we're waiting on questions, I'm going to share. You mentioned juniors, and I'm going to share. It's kind of goofy, but it's exactly how we teach the kids, right? Right down to a 5-year-old. So the My Little Teacup song, right? Everybody knows
Yes.
My Little Teacup, right?
Yes.
Short and stout. This is my handle. This is my spout.
Wait,
Well,
face the camera.
yeah, okay,
so that everyone
I'm a
can
little
see.
teacup, short and stout, right? This is my handle. This is my spout. So everybody knows that song. We want to pour water out of the spout. And if your spine angle's the wrong way, you're not pouring any water. So that's what we use to teach the kids how to do this, right?
Yep.
So I'll teach a 5-year-old this as quick as I'll teach a 65-year-old this.
With the teapot?
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody understands that, right? It gets everybody kind of laughing in a golf lesson, and we like to have some fun. But I'm a little teacup, short and stout. This is my handle. This is my spout. You want to pour water out of the spout.
Never.
What
ever.
that does, if you look at it on the pressure mat, right? So I'm 50-50, right? If I pour water, then you see weight go left and pressure go left.
Yep.
And that's what you're looking for. Now I'm overdoing that move, right? But that's how that works.
Okay. John Coop. Hey, Coop. Oh my God. Coop, you guys. Coop asked a question, and he also bought a pressure mat today. How cool is that? He bought a pressure mat this morning. Thank you, Coop. Welcome to the family. He has a great question. Besides keeping pressure left, is set up more on the heels or the toes, or looking for center neutral? Great question, Coop.
Yeah, that is a great question. So there's a little room for personal style in there, but I would tell you to stay away from the toes.
Okay. So
neutral or left heelish or lead heel, but neutral would be the answer there.
Okay, good.
I can handle heel, I once had a mentor tell me that the toes are the worst place to play golf from. The heels are the second worst place to play golf from. Right? So, yeah, so I'm okay with a little heavier in the heel, but never toe.
Okay, I like that because Terry Hash doesn't like us in our toes either. What you got here?
All right, we've got a lot of questions about the finesse chip theory changing with an uphill lie.
Mm-hmm.
Does it change with an uphill lie? Spine, angle, sternum position at address?
No, it doesn't change. It just gets harder, right? And what I mean by that is it gets harder because as the lie gets this way, your chest wants to go backwards, right? And so you have to fight to keep yourself somewhat neutral. Now, make no mistake, I never want you leaning into the slope. So if the ground's going this way, I don't want you to overdo it so much that you get into the slope.
That's
right?
good.
What happens is that leans the shaft too much forward and turns the leading edge into a little shovel, right? And so I would say just do your best to stay neutral to the ground. Okay, so I'm gonna give you two options. I'm okay with you drifting with the slope just a little bit, but your spine angle, right? So if this made a T-square, so the club is the ground, okay, and the orange stick is my spine. If the ground goes this way, I'm okay with your spine going with it because relative to the ground, you're not tilting away.
Okay.
Right.
Relative to a level camera, you look like you're tilting away, but to the ground, you're not.
Yeah.
Right? The thing I don't ever want you to do is the ground gets this way, and then you go this way.
That digs
Dead
out.
meat. You got no chance from there.
Okay.
Hopefully that answers your question. I would say just try to stay neutral to the ground. Ball might move up in your stance a little bit in that circumstance. So if the ball position is normally on the inside of the left heel and the ball position is a whole different animal, but wherever it normally would be played, it will move progressively more up the hill as the slope gets worse, right? Because what happens, if this is a ground and the club's bottoming out kind of right at my watch, and all of a sudden the ground goes this way, then the club bottoms out way further up in the arc. So the ball has to move forward.
Yeah, okay.
And then there are some ramifications that come with that, right? You're going to hit it higher when you do that, right? So if you normally would use a 56 or a 54 degree wedge in that situation, you're probably going to get the same trajectory out of a 50 or a 52.
Yes.
Same softness, same spin, same everything, because the ground condition adds loft. And it's, before anybody asks, it's the complete reverse on a downhill, right?
Right.
So the same thing. So I would want your, instead of working this way with the slope, I'm okay if you work a little this way with the slope. Ball's going to move a little back in your stance. That also makes the ball come out lower. So now you have to add loft instead of take loft away.
Okay.
So hopefully that cuts some people off before they even get there, and that answers your question.
You want to answer that one?
Do you try to keep the shaft more on the vertical side going back and prefer it to not rotate in? Chip, you're going to have to give me a little more detail. I assume you're talking about this angle and rotating in this way versus more vertical. Get back to me and let me know if that's what you mean, and then I'll try to answer that.
Thanks, Chip. That's Peter Chip Richter. All right. Jim wants to know if he should bend his legs or not.
Yeah, legs are less bent than you would typically see in full swing. Certainly not more bent, right? And here's why. I am going to go down the line here really quickly, and so
here I can give you a dual camera.
Okay, so that will work. All right, so if you look at this down the line view, which you definitely don't want to get into, you don't want to get into a situation. The more you bend your knees, remember the club's on the ground, so it's a fixed point, so it's not going to move off the ground. The more you bend your knees, the more vertical your chest gets, right? And so you sort of lose this angle. Okay, that is an absolute killer in putting, right? It's not so good in chipping either. And so because the golf club now wants to work more around your body, right? Whereas if you're more this way, it's going to want to work more up and down. I assume that's what Chip was talking about, but hopefully he'll give us some clarity.
Yeah.
So definitely less knee bend as opposed to more knee bend, but it really should be about the same.
You keep your wrists quiet.
Yeah, so Jim, that is 100% personal preference. it really has everything to do with your style, right? Better short game players tend to be earlier hingers. Let me say that a different way. Better finesse wedge players tend to be earlier hingers because they use their hands more. Those people aren't so good distance wedge players. So your better distance wedge players, think of Steve Stricker style, right? Steve Stricker's a wonderful distance wedge player. And so you don't have a ton of wrist hinge. There's more there than most people think because of 2D video. But you don't have a ton of wrist hinge. You have a whole lot of body rotation. Your better finesse wedge players, Luke Donald, Sergio Garcia, Jason Duffner, right? Those guys tend to be a little bit more handsy and a little bit hingier earlier. So there's some style there.
Chip has elaborated. Do you see
Okay, all
that?
right. So I think too many rotate the club behind and they can't get it back out in front. You can see the match setup leaning left. I mean, pitching with a more vertical plane.
I lost striker.
Okay, Chip, I'm going to assume you're talking about the down the line view and being this way versus this way. That's where I'm going to go with that, right? And so I would tell you that the right arm is the guider there. So the biggest mistake I see people make, and this has a lot to do with that stiff left arm setup. When the arm's locked, the only thing you can move are the wrists, right? And when I do this and add rotation, golf club gets inside, okay? Bad news. So when the left arm is soft, shoulders down, arms rotated this way, then when you add hinge and rotate, you tend to keep the golf club in front of you more. I think that's what you're talking about.
He said yes, that was it.
Okay, so hopefully that answers your question. I really don't want to, especially in finesse, I never want to see the golf club get behind you. Never, ever. That's bad news. It needs to stay right on plane. And the reason for that is because in the full swing, it can get off plane earlier and you can save it because you have the whole length of the golf swing to sort of replane it. You don't have that length in short game.
You're right.
So if it gets off plane early, you're toast. So if it's going to get off plane early, you need it to be over plane as opposed to under plane.
Hey, let me ask you a question, Brandon. Do you ever see anybody come in here that plays other sports that might mess up their, some people say baseball I ask that because we have a football/baseball player who's part of our family that's asked the question. Do you see that Cord Sandberg there? He's a professional baseball player and a professional football player. He's also married.
Oh, okay. Should the swing path feel straight back or out to in or in to out? That's a really good question. It's going to be a hard one for me to answer because I can't tell you how to feel, right?
Well, and he's a football player and a baseball player. He's super athletic.
The only difference in baseball and golf is twofold. One, the ball's on the ground and the bats and the golf club's not round, right? You have a club face in golf. You don't have a club face in baseball.
Right.
And your swing plane in baseball it's a little bit up, right? But it's pretty much level with the ground instead of being. So those are the only two differences, right?
Right.
And so in golf, we tend to be on top of it more. In baseball, we tend to be, you tend to hit off your back foot more. Maybe I'm not using your right terms, but I mean, those are the big differences. So I wouldn't worry at all about football, right? So should the swing path feel more out to in or in to out? Most people would call when they get themselves set this way. That's an over exaggeration, but when you get your chest this way, most people feel that more as a cut. It should not be, right? Because the right elbow, now I'm going down the line, the right elbow should work around your body. So you see the right arm bending and the elbow moving against my rib cage. And so as you move this way, the golf club runs right on plane with the right elbow's bent, right? And so then that works right back down plane. And so it's not really in out or out to in, it's on plane.
Yeah.
As far as who feels what.
I was joking because I had to call out that he's.
Kind of depends on where you're coming from.
Thanks, Cord. We appreciate you.
What about this one here?
Does the handle finish left and close to the body? That's a great question. Those are two completely different things, right? So left is one conversation and close to the body is another, right? And so I'm going to talk face on first with the handle close to the body. So if you think about, we swing on a big circle, right? And the further away from our chest the golf club is, the longer the radius of that circle. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So if you can imagine the center of rotation, being roughly the logo on my shirt, the further away the golf club is, the longer the radius, the closer the golf club is, the shorter the radius, okay? Well, if I hit a wedge shot and I finish with the handle close to my body, I've shortened the radius. Golf club is closer to me, it's working up more after impact, and that's a higher trajectory style, right? If I finish with the handle further away from my body, pushing it away from my body, that lengthens the radius, and that's a lower trajectory style, okay?
So is it based on the shot?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%, right? And so if I'm in a situation where I need to hit it higher and softer, you'll see a finish with the handle close to my body. If I need it to hit and go low, or hit and check, or release, then you'll see me with a finish that's pushed away from my body. I shorten the radius or lengthen the radius depending on the trajectory I need. Now, the left, I don't want to see, right? And so now I'm looking on the down the line view. So I see a lot of people that will finish left and they'll pull the left arm out, right? And so you see this left elbow sticking out, and you see the handle really close to their body. It's close to their body because they pull the handle left, not because they're trying to shorten the radius and hit it high. And I don't want to see that, right? So I would rather see the handle stay in front of the body. So on the down the line view, I'm rotated, and you can still see the handle right here. It hasn't disappeared around my body. In order for that handle to get that far left, typically that yanks the club left from the down the line view, and from the face on view, the more the club goes left, the more the handle drags. You deliver forward shaft lean. Usually that does not work very well for finesse wedges.
Yeah, that's me.
Hopefully that answers that question.
All right, so for finesse wedges, do you teach anything differently into hitting into the green versus down the green?
Do I teach it differently? No. The type of shot you will hit could vary greatly depending on whether it's landing into the grain or down grain. If it's landing down grain, the ball's going to hit and release, so you have to add trajectory. So you might play the shot differently, but the technique is the same. In other words, I might change a variable. I might add more loft. I might play the ball more forward. I might shorten the radius to hit it higher if it's landing down grain, because I know the ball's going to hit and release. Opposite end of the grain, if I know I need it to force a little, I may use a lower lofted club, deliver a little more forward shaft lean so I can get a lower trajectory, push the radius away from me a little. But the technique is the same.
Okay.
Hopefully that makes sense. Will you hand me that cup right there, please? Thank you. I love the questions.
All right, should I take a shot?
This is Mandy's club, everybody, right here. We tried to get her one that she could not fail with.
Can you guys see that club? I do not have special cameras to make this club look smaller.
That's right. That's right. This is a club we give people that aren't very good, and they need to feel better in a golf lesson. We just do that. If you miss it with that club, we got trouble.
Can you show a putting trace?
Sure.
We've
Sure.
never seen it.
Yeah. Of course. I will say there's not going to be much to a putting trace, because if you're doing this right, trace shouldn't move a whole lot, right? So, Matt got a little off there, right? And so if I'm set up right, you should see about 50-50, and you should see my pressure sort of right in the middle, right?
Yep.
And in theory, if I'm making the stroke correctly, you won't see much of that move around at all, right? So you see my weight staying right at 50-50, pressure staying right in the middle.
Is that what we want to do? Stay super, super, super quiet?
Absolutely, yeah. If you start seeing traces move around, right, then you've got way too much body movement.
And you always want pressure evenly dispersed right to left?
Not necessarily. It's dependent a little bit on ball position, right? And so if somebody is a left leaner, if they got more weight left, I'm okay with that. So there's an example where pressure and weight are left. So I got 80% left, and I got my pressure trace, my pressure center right over, on the left foot. You just got to let ball position drift forward with that. And so if you're looking at the face on view, right, I'll square up to it. You would see the ball go more forward. What you in effect do when you move weight is you move the bottom of the arc, right? And in putting, you want to hit it pretty close to the bottom of the arc, just a tad bit on the up strike. And so if you're going to move the weight left, then the bottom of the arc moves left, therefore ball position needs to move left. But the trace wouldn't change.
Right, okay.
Right? So even if you started left, right, like I am now, and I make a putt, I should stay right on my left leg, and you don't see the pressure trace moving at all.
At all. Okay.
I don't see the mistake of somebody being too far back too often.
Okay.
Right? Most of the time it's too much forward. Look, if I were building a robot, I'd build them 50-50. But some people come in with a style where they lean left. Now,
but if I'm not a good putter and I am a beginner golfer, I should be thinking about setting up 50-50. What about heels and toes?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So a mistake that a lot of people make in putting is they use a putter that's too long, right? And so this is not too long for me, but imagine I'm going to grip it up a little bit. And so the putter's too long, so it raises my chest, and then they get sit back in the heels, right? And so you can see my weight. Matt's breathing a little bit funky there because my weight's definitely, I'm about to fall over. I'm in my heels really heavy, right? And so that's a real bad place in putting. And so usually that's a club fitting problem, not always, but if I grip this putter the right way, you see me drift much more forward, and now you see it very totally, right?
Yeah.
What's going on there?
Okay, but you want it to be centered in the foot, front to back, and left to right?
No, it should be heavy in the toes.
Heavy in the
left
toes.
to right, in the center. I'm okay with a little forward if you let the ball drift a little forward. And by a little forward, I mean, I could handle 60 to 70% left. I wouldn't want to see, 80 to 100. But I could handle 60 to 70% left as long as the ball moved forward with it. Heel to toe, generally, I talk about feeling the weight being right at the bottom of the shoelaces. It's actually a little more forward than the balls of your feet, right?
Okay, so like maybe underneath your toes.
Yep, exactly. So the way I say that, come in here, I'll show you. All right, so this is what I typically do for folks. And so if you set up to it, I would tell you, I'm gonna lean you so far forward that you can't pick the big toe up off the sole of your shoe, right?
Okay.
And then go just until you can.
Okay, got it.
Right?
Yep.
That's it. So I want you heavy in the toes, but not on the toes.
Okay, so I'm at like 80.
Yep. Yeah, about 80%.
Wow. 80-20 in our toes for putting.
Yeah, so again, I want you to be able to pick your big toe up off the sole of up off of the bottom of your shoe, but I want you as far in your toes as you can get and still do that.
Wow, you guys do this with me. Jim, I know you're doing this. This is good. I've got 95 in my left toe.
The reason I would do that, I'm going to come in here, I'm going to grab a hold of your hips right here, and I'm going to pull your hips that way. See how your knees just straighten?
Yes.
So straighter knees, they're not locked, but they are straighter, right?
Yep.
And then with that weight more toward the toes. Now, I'd have to do some work on your arms too. That's a trace for another day.
Jim says he's doing it.
I know he is. He is doing it. And we don't have to point out the bad stuff on camera. Pro.
That's right.
I mean, we don't have to point it out. We can say your arms look good.
You got up here.
Okay, are you pushing her more forward to get her eyes over the ball?
Yeah, so it actually starts there. So you should set your eye line right over the ball.
Okay.
And the rest of the posture would be built around the eyes being there, if that makes sense. So I would set her eyes right where they are, and see she went right back into that thing. So I'm just, good, right there. And that forces, let your elbows bend for me. More. Now we're talking right there.
Really?
Keep your knees up. Yes. A little more. Now we're putting right there. Yep.
Now we're putting.
Somebody take it. Somebody
Right.
screen capture this.
So in the putting book, really quick, in the putting book, I talk about the 5 lines. Keep those knees up. I talk about the 5 lines, right? Really important. Eyes over the ball, arms, elbows in front of the knees, putter shaft in line with the forearms, middle of the hip straight down to the back of the heel, which is what I'm working on when I do that.
Okay, and I just saw a question about the glutes. I'm absolutely using my glutes.
Yeah, they should be
Yeah,
on
it says,
fire.
do you like your students to engage the glutes and abs while in the putting setup?
Abs, yes. I wouldn't want you to feel engagement in the glutes.
Okay.
because that tends to bend your knees.
Okay.
Right?
I am feeling my glutes.
And you should feel tightness in the hamstrings.
Absolutely.
And your abs can be engaged. I'm okay with that. And you feel stretch across the glute is what you feel.
Yes,
Yeah.
I do. Totally different.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
All right, and staying there, how would you determine the correct length of putter for you?
Yeah, so I would build the setup first, right? So if you just stay in your posture, let me have this, right? Okay. So I would just let your arms just dangle, right? And then bend the elbows and just pull them in until they just touch, and then let the bottom part just hang down. Here you go, right there. Okay. So I'd get her in the posture. I'd set the eyes first. I'd ask her to straighten her knees just a touch.
Good.
Feel the weight heavier in the toes, which we are, right? Now I've got her where I need her. I know where the ball's at. I would simply just fit a putter in and whatever that length fit to.
Okay.
That's how I would do that.
Good.
Yeah. A
Holy
lot of people do it the
moly.
opposite way. A lot of people will get the putter first, and then they'll adjust their setup
Right.
to the fit of the putter.
Right.
That's terrible.
Okay.
So build the setup first, and then fit the putter in.
Okay. Lots of similar questions, but for chipping. So ball position and setup for chipping.
Let's do that with you.
Okay.
Can you do what you did with me with Haley? Let's have her hit some.
Sure.
Okay. You guys, is that setup putting thing in your book?
Yes.
Okay. I've never had anybody put me in that position
Yes.
for putting, and it felt really different. And I know that Brandon's a short game guru, so I go by the book and read that part.
Yeah, there's an
It's
image in
very
there
different.
that's literally got the lines drawn out with numbers, and then the caption it explains it. Yep.
Okay, so there's two books, putting and chipping. The putting, I have a copy, but.
So Haley, before you come in, I'll just say ball position is completely dependent upon, it's a variable that's altered for trajectory, right? And so, where's my wedge, right? So you sort of have this rule, or I sort of have this rule, and this is where I get crossed with a lot of folks in the industry,
Okay.
right? This is where the bad information comes out. I would tell you that I would never want the ball further back than the middle of your stance, ever. Right? I'm gonna say that again. I would never want the ball to be positioned further back than the middle
For chipping?
for anything, right? Unless you're hitting it out, punching it out from under a tree, but specifically for chipping and short game,
Okay.
right? So a lot of people hit bump and runs or chip shots, so they get the ball back, they get the handle forward, they get all this lean.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, that is a disaster waiting to happen.
Okay.
Right? I've fixed more short games for that than anything else. Okay. And so the club should never really get any further back than the middle of your stance. Most of your shots will be played with the ball, one ball forward of the middle, all the way up further than your left toe,
Okay.
depending on the trajectory that you need to hit. Right. So come on in here.
All right, and I'm going to open the door.
Yep.
We're going to get cold for a minute, but you guys, while we get the door open, Kelly's going to pick a winner for to receive 2 copies of Brandon's book. You see him in my little screen down there. So Kelly will tell us the winner in a second. I'm going to open the door. Woo!
Joe, if you can hear me, I'm going to answer your question. Does the pressure mat help with choice of putter length? I would say the answer to that's no, except that it tells you whether or not your pressure is properly in your toes when you set up, or heavy in your toes. So hopefully that makes sense. It's a little brisk. All right? So take your normal setup.
Okay.
Whatever you would normally do.
Okay.
Okay. And so she's actually fairly level. So if you're looking at this, you'll see her pressure is pretty much 50-50, right? The only, and I love the fact that her left arm is not so straight, grip's not so strong, right? So for the sake of what we're talking about,
Okay.
I'm okay with this hand position. I'm just going to let this elbow roll a little this way, and this arm soften a little this way, okay?
Okay.
And so what you'll see is you'll see very level shoulders, okay? And you don't see a lot of tilt this way. And the only thing I'm going to do now is just ask you to take the buttons on your shirt and move them an inch left. That's it, right there.
Okay.
Okay? So that's got her pressure, maybe just a tick more. That's got her pressure about 60% into the left leg. And it's got her spine very much straight up and down and not leaning back away that way. So that's pretty good from a setup standpoint. All right, I want you to hit that shot for me. Okay, good. Let's try it again. What's that?
I'm shivering. It's cold.
Yeah, no, it's cold. Open that door. I think it's supposed to get down into the mid-20s tonight, so it's pretty cold. All right, so remember, this arm is rotated and softened, so it bends, and then that takes the buttons on your shirt just an inch forward. So on your pressure trace, right, you should see the pressure. So get the pressure a little bit more into your left leg there for me. And you do that by moving your chest, not your, there we go, good. So you start to see the pressure drift. We've got it 60s now. Pressure's just a little bit. Good, right there, okay?
Okay.
Feels really in front of it, right?
Yeah.
Good, hit that for me.
Oh.
All right, let's try it again. So Haley's not the best model in a good way, right? Because her setup was pretty neutral to begin with. She didn't really have that traditional setup that you see with that really straight left arm. See, I love how soft this arm is, right? That's pretty good right there, right? You might want to just there you go, get it a little left, perfect. Move the ball about 2 balls forward in your stance for me. One more than that. There you go, right there. Hit that same shot. Awesome. Good. Very nice.
You want to look at it, Brandon?
Yeah. Show me that face on view and just drag. The left arm could be a tick softer.
Okay.
It's not bad.
Oh, I'm driving the wrong video, sorry.
Yep, so that's her moving a little there. So the ball's moving forward, right? Stop right there for me. So can you guys see, can you see how tilted her shoulders are? How the right shoulder is lower than the left shoulder, right? And so it got worse as the ball got forward. That's because as the ball got more forward, the left arm, you literally are shaking your so-called, the left arm got straighter, right? So what happens, if you guys watch what happened, so take it back to setup for me, and watch her head in the backswing. So as you run that through just to the top, see your head move away from it?
Yep.
Bad news.
So it got straighter as I got to hit it.
As the ball got more forward,
Yeah.
the left arm got straighter and it drove the left shoulder up. So let's go live one more time for me, Mandy. And I want to have her set up, and we're going to close the store because she's freezing to death. Right, so that ball's pretty much just inside your left toe, okay? So this is going to roll, and that's going to bend. And go. There we go, right there. So you see how that lowered that left shoulder, right? Stay right there for me. Keep your head right where it's at. Let's hit that shot. Awesome. Hopefully you got that, Mandy. Beautiful. Now, if you roll back this recording, what you'll see, if you could split screen it, we okay closing this door?
Yes,
She's
close the
freezing
door.
to death.
I only captured face on that.
Show me that face on before, and that one she just did. You can do that. Can you split screen those two?
Yep.
Perfect. The one on the left is the after.
The right is the after.
Okay, so roll that one on the right forward a little bit. Like a lot. So click it and drag it.
Sorry, I've got so many
That's
windows
okay.
from our Zoom.
You should see me. Oh, you didn't get the whole thing with me standing there, right? Okay, rewind that back again. Right there. So see how level those shoulders are right there as compared to what they are on the left. Exactly. So you get pretty level there, and if you come over here, you've got angle.
Right.
And that had everything to do with the left arm. And so now on the right, the head's not going to move back as you drag it into the swing. On the right side, you remember on the left side how much the head dragged or drug. Now it doesn't move at all.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So that's why that angle is so important at address.
So it never goes past that line.
Right.
But over here.
It only goes forward. Yeah, if you draw that same line back there. Ooh, somebody just asked a question about bounce angles. That is a gigantic can of worms. Now you're going to see the head. Well, I might have to redraw that line there. But you can see it drift. You can see the head drift. That's really hard to recover from in chipping. And you'll see she never really gets it back. By the time she gets the impact, her head is still back.
Yep.
And so that's why that setup angle is so important. And the pressure mat helps you sort of understand the difference in weight forward and pressure forward.
Okay.
Her sternum went forward, so that it looks as if her knee.
Yeah. Her sternum forward setup, it looks as though the sternum at forward, the sternum I would want going this way, right? Because that would mean it's the anti-tilting away, right? So I was overdoing it a little bit with her. I mean, I wouldn't want 4, 5, 6 inches, right? But, you know, a couple inches forward, I'm more than okay.
Okay, really quickly, you guys, we have, sometimes we do random drawings, and we drew, and I want everyone to know this is, we have this like system, it's a, I don't know, Kelly has a system, and she literally randomly draws from the names of people that registered for the event. So it was totally random, don't fuss at me, but the winner of the books is, I'm looking in my chat, Kim Brick. Is a golf instructor, and Kim, we will mail you copies of Brandon's books. Thank you for attending tonight. I know you'll love the books. You can sign them for Kim if you don't mind, and I will mail them out. Okay, so Joe's asking when we're coming to Country Club of Louisiana to learn to play. Do you know Blaine?
So I do. So Joe, it's interesting. In about a month and a half, to be exact, April 1st, I take over as the head golf professional at Metairie Country Club. So you tell Blaine I'll be in his back door here in just about a month and a half.
Yes, yes. Blaine
and we can fight back and forth on who's got the better short game.
Although I will tell you, Blaine wins for better accent.
Yeah, I can't hang.
Coolest,
I can't hang with Cajun folk now.
He has the coolest Louisiana accent of anybody I've ever seen in my life.
I can handle Tennessee hillbilly redneck, but I can't hang with Cajun. So I'll be seeing Blaine soon enough.
He's very cool. Yeah, so you guys, if you want to take a lesson from Brandon, you obviously can find him in the V1 software as Stooksbury Golf. Your academy is called Stooksbury Golf.
That's correct.
Yeah. And you'll be at Idle Hour for a few more weeks in Macon, and then headed down to Metairie in Louisiana. I think we should tick through a bunch of these questions because there's so many.
Absolutely.
I mean, there are tons. You can see them there. Michael Jonges has asked, how about her eyes released to the target sooner?
Yes. The sooner the better. So the more people keep their head down and stare at the ground, the more that leans your spine backward. And so anytime you can let your eyes release to the target sooner, the better. Think about a David Duvall or an Annika Sorenstam. They did it for very different reasons, but that's a good idea of what to think about.
Is that for all?
That's for every golf swing you make. Hanging back's real bad. It's not good.
Okay, sand. There are a bunch of questions about sand. Talking about sand setup in the sand.
We drink margaritas in the sand.
So let me tell you a funny story on the wedge book really quickly. So when I had my co-writer, Matthew Rude, who is an awesome individual. He's a great friend, works for Golf Digest. I literally gave him the first draft and said, here's what I'd like in the chapter on sand. And he sent it back to me, and he was like, hey, you can't put any of that in the book.
He said that?
Like, you can't say that.
Oh, why? Because you're saying all that stuff?
I could make a living standing in a bunker. There is so much bad information out in the golf world about how to hit sand shots. It's ridiculous. And so,
tell us the top 3 things that are wrong with what people are teaching us about.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Don't set up left and don't swing left. It just makes it harder. It's not that you can't do it, it just makes it harder. So that'd be the first one I would tell you. Worse, even in chipping, don't hang back, right? People love to get knee slide in the sand to try to get under it. Just a kiss of death, right? Can't do that in a bunker, okay? and for God's sakes, open your face.
Mm.
So if you want 3 things, that's what I would tell you. It's way more, well, it's very simple, but it's way more complex than what I just said. But there's just a lot of bad information, more so even than in chipping and pitching. There's a lot of bad information out there in the bunker, right? The bunker's the one golf club or the one place in golf you can hit 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe even 6 inches behind it and still get the ball to come out.
That's what we want to do.
Right.
We're way behind the ball.
You can't do that in pitching. So you have way more margin for error in a bunker than you do anywhere else. And somehow people want to try to make it harder by adding all these different funky setup pieces that they've heard or read or been taught, throughout the years. And so, I don't want to give too much of a plug, but there's a ton of information in the wedge book on setup and how to hit bunker shots. You're going to see a few videos on YouTube. More content's coming. Sand does not have to be hard, but if you make a couple of the mistakes that I see a lot of people make because of bad information, you're going to have a lot of trouble.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Do you have YouTube training?
I do, yeah.
And do you put you have short game videos?
Yeah, absolutely. I need to do some more. They're getting a little old, but more content's coming, I promise.
You
but
guys,
there is lots of stuff out there.
Stooksbury Golf is Brandon's handle on all the social channels.
Right.
And of course, Haley will share that. Is that a question from Diane Dimmick that we have time to answer?
Yes.
Diane.
Twisting in their feet for chipping. Help that.
To the left and the backswing. Right side on the follow through, not the same as the reverse pivot. I feel the mass is left on the backswing, right on the follow through. Twists to the left and the backswing. Okay, so the way I think I would answer that is they have the exact same problem we've just talked about. It's just exaggerated, right? And so if you go too far left in the backswing, you've got nowhere to go in the downswing but right. Well, that's the exact same problem we just talked about, right? It's just worse, right? And so
it's like a compensation.
Yeah, and so I'm gonna give you the greatest drill ever. Do we still have a live? Are we?
Yeah, we can share.
Yeah, so let's share the screen. So yep, so 100% best short game drill ever. Okay.
Hold on one second.
So we're just gonna go single screen. Yep, right there. Okay. So the ball's gonna go up off your left toe. Okay. Wouldn't do this when you normally do it, but in this drill, it's up off your left toe. Okay. I want you to balance your chest and weight over that ball.
Okay.
All the way back with your right toe up. Okay. You have no weight on that right toe. It's just on the ground and hanging there. And now you got to hit shots, right? Moving around your left leg. So you're rotating around your left leg. If you've got somebody that goes this way too much on the downswing or on the backswing, or goes this way too much on the through swing, they'll fall and break their nose. Greatest short game drill ever. A lot of people call it a stork drill. I don't really have a name for it. But ball goes way forward off your toes, center your chest over that ball and over your left knee. Get this foot out of the way, right, up on your toe. Don't just stick it back here with weight on it. Just up on your toe, right? And just stay there. Get wedge shots.
Flamingo.
You can rotate around your left leg if you want, right? But you just can't move off of it. Really, really great short game drill. So that would, whoever asked that question about the twister, the feet twister, I'd give them that drill.
Okay.
Cool.
They'll be really frustrated for the first half hour. They won't be able to hit it. But eventually they'll figure it out.
Okay. Got it.
We got any time for more questions?
Doesn't look. How would you explain it? 20. Let's ask this one really quickly. How would you explain to a 20 handicap with a strong grip to weaken their grip to lower their left shoulder for chipping?
I think I would explain it exactly how I just explained it, right?
Trace?
I have no problem telling people that the short game needs a different grip than the full swing. I have no issue saying that to people, right? And so anybody that tells you that they're the same means that they have a really, really neutral or weak grip in the full swing, right? And that's okay, but you cannot have, it's really challenging to have a really good short game. Let me say it a different way. It's very challenging to have a wide array of short game shots with strong grip. You can hit low shots pretty well, but it's really hard to hit high, soft shots with strong grip. And so I would weaken their grip. I would do exactly what I just talked about. I would put their thumb right down the top of the shaft, right? And just explain to them, this is not how you do it at the full swing, right? It's not what we want the full swing, right? This is only finesse wedges, right? Inside 30 yards. Because the sequence and the way the body moves is completely different in finesse wedges than it is anywhere else in the game.
Yeah.
So I think you have to have that. I think you have to have that conversation.
Okay. Haley, come over here and let's tell the good people how much fun we have with them tonight. And Joe's telling you that he's going to spend Mardi Gras with you.
Yeah, I can't.
1 year from today.
That's right. I can't wait. I hope we're having it down there. I mean, it's gonna, COVID's a big deal when New Orleans cancels Mardi Gras.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so let's hope I get to have a cocktail with you on Mardi Gras, Joe.
You will. Everyone, thank you so much for joining Haley, our director of social media, and Brandon, our short game guru rock star, tonight on Tuesday Traces. We love taking Tuesday Traces on the road. So if you have a pressure mat and you would like to host a Tuesday Traces, call me up. I'll come hang out and we will we'll do this on a Tuesday night at 7 o'clock. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining us. And if you'd like to find Brandon, Stooksbury Golf, please go follow V1 and please send me a message. I love hearing from everyone and love you guys so much. Have
Thanks.
a good one.
Good night.
Cheers. Bye, everyone.